Here at Xbox On, we've been lucky enough to get hands-on with Forza Horizon 5 just a little bit early to see how the very beginning of the game plays on the Xbox Series X. And in this sneak peek today, we're going to show you some side-by-side footage of our journey in both the performance and quality modes that are available for next-gen consoles. So, big thanks to Playground Games for letting us tear it up in Mexico ahead of release. The very start of the game does not hold back because we're dropping into the La Gran Caldera Volcano in one of the beautiful cover cars, the 2021 Ford Bronco Badlands. And actually we're going to start off in performance mode, which, in case you didn't know, is actually the 60 FPS mode for Forza Horizon 5, and it looks beautiful. This is kind of the mode that you'd want to choose if you're going to be prioritizing the frame rate. Side by side now we can actually see the quality mode coming in, and this mode you'll notice first off that the frame rate has halved. We're looking at 30 FPS, but the textures, the lighting, the draw distance, everything is ramped up so much more, so you get all that juicy little extra fidelity out of the game. In performance mode, I tend to prefer this for Forza games or for racing games in general, just because I feel like I can make those quicker decisions as they come in, and seeing corners a little bit earlier, getting more feedback and information into your eyes, quite important in a racing game. However, Forza's also been known to show off some really beautiful vistas in its quality mode, which, sometimes you just want to soak in the sights of Mexico as well. As we're tearing it up in the Badlands, I noticed that it's just such a really, I don't know, the word maybe is just very organic feeling to the car itself. I'd already sort of tweaked some of the driving settings and got it just right to how I prefer to play Forza, and it just feels like you've got a real connection with the terrain underneath you in both modes. You can really feel the sort of rumbling of the ground underneath. It really just connects with the car so beautifully that it helps you just drive better, which was really awesome. Next up though, in this little intro of the game, we're going to be moving on to another really, really cool car. It's the 2020 Corvette Stingray, which we're going to be taking it through the Tierra Prospero area of the map. This was actually a really fun car to drive, and you'll see coming up that there's quite a lot of detail difference between the performance mode, which we're in right now, and upcoming the quality mode, especially when you're looking at reflections on the car itself. So right now the reflections, they look pretty good, but it's fair to say that maybe they're a little bit more matted, even though this is a glossy car finish. But once we swap in the quality mode, you can really see that there's just much more fine detail. There's much more sort of anti-aliasing, and it's just really, really quite pretty, especially with the amount of lighting that's coming into Forza Horizon 5. Obviously, in Forza Horizon 4, we were playing more in British weather, which, as we all know, doesn't have too much sunlight. But in Mexico, that is a different story. Loads of sunlight, loads of beautiful opportunities to get some great lighting going on. And especially, I noticed, and it happens quite often later on in this little playthrough, when we drive through water, you can really notice the difference between performance and quality mode with the amount of droplets that are hitting the car, how they sort of refract with the light. It's just such a convincing and beautiful effect in quality mode. And in performance mode, obviously, you're prioritizing the frame rate, so you lose a little bit of that detail, but it also looks and plays so nicely. So it is a great trade-off, but it's also going to depend on your play style. As we're coming through and cutting through the sandstorm itself, you can see that there's a lot more of that sort of atmospheric density difference between the performance and quality modes. So you'll see slightly less of the trees maybe on the quality mode because the sandstorm itself is being rendered at a bit more of an intense and a sort of higher and demanding graphical fidelity. Now we're dropping in with a very cool car, the Porsche 911 Desert Flyer. This part of the playthrough itself was really fun, actually. It's just fun to just swing this massive car around, really dig into the dirt and just get a few bumpy rides in as well. But yeah, the La Selva area, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun here and find some really cool beauty spots to take photos of, because look at it, it's just so lush, it's so beautiful. Even in the sort of performance mode, you can see so much foliage there. It's really dense. It's definitely the densest foliage I've ever seen in a racing game. But as you move over to quality mode, the lighting is for me the biggest difference, and especially those water droplets. If you look at the back of the back view mirror of the car, you can see as we're going through, there is just a bit more sort of light passing through it. There's a bit more detail inside the car itself. It's really impressive. Right there, you can see just the sort of the water splashes on the back, as well as the reflections. If you notice any trees that sort of pop by as we're in quality mode, you're really seeing the sort of shadows, the lighting, the reflections are just a little bit more highly fidelity rendered than they are in performance mode. It's really, really cool. That being said, performance mode is no slouch. The game itself looks beautiful. It runs at such a really good frame rate. And all in all, it was just a lot of fun. Another chance to see the sort of water splashes in quality mode right there versus performance mode. It's just such a pleasing effect. And although obviously we are losing some of the frame rate in quality mode, I have to say that the motion blur that had been applied onto it is actually really, really convincing. It's just the right amount of motion blur to help sort of, link those frames together and give it as smooth an effect as possible. And it's not too much motion blur that you lose the detail in the world itself. So obviously with a quality mode, you're going to see higher rendering detail. But sometimes you can feel like that might be lost because of lack of frame rate, but the motion blur really does stitch it all together really nicely, and it's just a beautiful effect. As we come into our fourth and final car of this little playthrough, this is another cover car actually. There's 2 cover cars this year, interestingly enough, and this one is definitely going to excite people. This is the Mercedes AMG One. This is a very fun car to drive, and we're going to be tearing it up all the way to the festival itself, and the engine on it is just beautiful. I believe it's an all-electric car. I might be wrong on that, but even so, the engine on it sounds so good. Again, starting it off in performance mode, which when you're racing at high speeds, I feel like performance mode is the smart choice to make. However, like I said before, you're going to want to choose quality mode when you're just itching to see some beautiful views. That being said, we've got a great view for the first time of the sky itself, which is rendered in such high detail. Honestly, I couldn't tell the difference between this sky and a real sky. They just look the exact same to me. In both modes, the sky is just awesome. Again, what you're probably noticing here on this side-by-side is a lot of the shadow detail is somewhat lost in performance mode because of that trade-off to get a higher frame rate. But obviously, when you're looking for more frames, you're not going to mind so much if you're missing a bit of shadows. However, in quality mode, the shadows are super deep. They're super detailed as well. There's less pixelation. They're rendered in a higher detail, so you can see the shadow underneath the car, the shadow underneath the trees, the shadow underneath even the lampposts themselves, and the plane as it just flew by are just that much more crisp, less pixelation on them, less aliasing. But it's all part of that trade-off. If you want to get higher fidelity, you do have to lose a bit of the frame rate here. But in either case, it's just a beautiful view of Mexico, and all I knew is that after this, I could not wait to tear it up in a bit of free roam just to see what the rest of the map looked like, because from this little snapshot of these 4 areas, I just knew this was definitely going to be the most beautiful Forza Horizon 5 game. It's so beautiful. And here we come in for the final beauty shot in the Mercedes AMG One. Guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been a lot of fun to chat to you guys about between the differences of performance mode, quality mode on Forza Horizon 5. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!